Hillary Clinton trying to quiet criticism of her use of a private email account while she was Secretary of State, now taking to Twitter and asking her emails be released. The incident exploded this week when the New York Times reported Clinton, the frontrunner among Democrats heading into the 2016 elections, may have broken federal records laws by using a private email account for all her official correspondence.
Our guest knows what it's like to be in the political trenches as everyone seeks to find ways out of a dilemma. Former Deputy Assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney, contributor for the Daily Beast, and the CEO of Christie Strategies, Ron Christie joins us on the show. Good to see you again, Ron.
Good to see you, Ed. How are you?
Excellent, my friend, although not as good as I think some Republicans are right now. They're probably very happy that Mrs. Clinton is in some sort of trouble here. But I'm going to get to you, first of all, on your strategic side. Few Democrats are coming to her aid at this moment and supporting her. Is this strategically a death knell for her shot at the presidency?
Well, I think it made that road to her path for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for 2017 a little bit more difficult, Ed. I think what you have here is a classic Clintonian case of secretiveness, evasiveness, and then, of course, once the actual issue comes out, then parsing by loyalists and parsing by staff. But here, what I think is most interesting, what you've pointed out, is the fact that very few prominent Democrat members of Congress are coming to her defense. Former aides, yes. Former members of Congress, no. And current members of Congress, no. And I just don't know whether she can survive this onslaught that is undoubtedly going to be fodder for Republicans should she decide to throw her hat in the ring.
Is it not fair to say, though, Ron, that though people use the phrase Clintonian arrogance in so many ways over so many years and so many different things, that this is just incredible to believe that a veteran politician would believe that something like this can simply slip by, especially in this media day and age, and especially with Benghazi still on top of everybody's thinking?
That's exactly right, and it almost makes you wonder whether this is a form of political suicide. And, you know, I've long since maintained that she doesn't want to run for the presidency, and there are a number of folks who say, now, why would you think that? But look at it this way. You have her husband out there still doing what he's doing, flying around on a jet, going to some, sex-filled island. You have the former Secretary of State not only having a private email account, but setting up her own server at Chappaqua. The issues that this will raise, not only for potential Democrats who want to run for office, but potential Republicans, is, did this make it that much easier for foreign spies to hack into her email account and learn sensitive information? And if she's not willing to abide by the Federal Records Act, Ed, what else is she hiding? The staff shouldn't be the ones going through and determining what's public and what's not public. The government, the people, have a right to all of those records and all of those files, which she clearly did not want to provide.
Let's get right to a point you just made here, because here's Ari Fleischer, the former White House press secretary, discussing specifically what you talked about, and that is the fact her information being on a private server. Listen up.
There is a real security-related issue here. Forget whether they're classified or not. The inner workings of the State Department, for the inner conversations on email back and forth between the Secretary of State and their staff, if it's done from a personal account, I guarantee you China, Russia, and Iran have them.
Is that not the biggest issue here, Ron? Because certainly there are already some Democrats firing back saying, well, wait a minute, Jeb Bush actually has a private server and he had his emails there. This is the sitting Secretary of State at a time when everything, every facet of government is being hacked to death by computer hackers these days. Something may have fallen into the hands of an enemy, and that is inexcusable.
That's exactly right. And we're talking about the Obama administration, Ed. Remember, the most transparent administration in history, apparently. There was a modified statute that President Obama signed into law in 2009, when she was, of course, Secretary of State, that required all of these officials in these cabinet agencies to comply with record keeping. She has clearly taken a look at that and decided that for whatever reason she didn't want to comply with it. That's number one. Number two, as you pointed out, and as my friend Ari Fleischer has pointed out, I would be shocked if the Chinese, if the Russians, if adversaries to the United States had not hacked into that system and had access to the inner workings of the State Department and our executive branch of government.
20 seconds before we take a break, right off the top of your head, the person that could replace Hillary or the top person that might be there to run if she's out?
Well, I tell you, I think Martin O'Malley, the former governor from Maryland, is taking a look at this. I think that you're going to actually be surprised at who might eventually emerge, and I suspect on the other side of the break, Ed, you and I might take that up in a little further detail.
I think we're going to take that up in detail, exactly, and I think you were right on the money here with Martin O'Malley, because I think he's just quietly waiting at this point. Ron, please stand by a couple of moments here, because if The Weakest Link were still a nightly game show, some of you may actually remember that, started in the UK, was here in America, hey, no doubt certain Republicans would have a permanent chair. And have we seriously found a savvy person blaming the media for all of his verbal ills? That and so much more when we continue right here on MidPoint. Let's get back to it. Former Deputy Assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney, CEO of Christie Strategies, and who gets chops every day for having merely survived life inside the Beltway. Think about that for a couple of minutes. Ron Christie's back with us. Ron, let's pick up where we left off here with regard to somebody who could indeed take Hillary Clinton's place. I got to be honest with you. I'm looking through a list right now. I see Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland. I see maybe Jim Webb, the former senator from Virginia. But I don't see anybody here that's got the DNC right now licking their chops.
No, I don't either, and I'd throw out two more for you to think about, Ed. I would throw out former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, who left as a relatively popular governor in Massachusetts, and I hate to say it, but the two-term and current governor of California, Jerry Brown, do not be surprised.
Ron, come on, be serious. Wait a minute. Jerry Brown, where are you going to go next? Joe Biden?
I wouldn't go that far. But I think it underscores a very important issue here, that there has been a sense that there would be a coronation for Secretary Clinton, that there would be no one else who was strong enough, no one else who could out fundraise, no one else who could have a better infrastructure and organization put in place. What this emphasizes to me, Ed, is that the Democratic bench is very short, and once you get beyond Senator Clinton or Elizabeth Warren, who I don't believe will get into this race, the pickings are kind of slim.
Look, let's be honest here. If you're sitting at the DNC right now and you're looking at the possibility that Mrs. Clinton won't run, there's got to be a little panic setting in.
Oh, I think alarm bells are going off over there. And I think the next 48 hours are going to be very critical to Secretary Clinton. She needs to be very forthright, very difficult for her to do. She needs to be very forthcoming, and she needs to turn over all access to that server to the federal government and allow the government to go in and determine what emails have been archived and which need to be turned over. And I don't think that her staff saying that they've gone through 55,000 pages of documents and saying we've turned over the relevant information is going to cut it. I just don't believe America wants to go through another period of time where we have Clintons in the White House parsing about what is and what not. I just think she might really be, this might be the wound that really keeps her out of this race. No
chance she makes it all better by coming out and saying, I screwed up, I messed up, we broke the rules, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. My dog ate my own.
No. This is a pattern of behavior. This is the Whitewater subpoena for documents relating to the Rose Law Firm that the Clintons had no idea where they were. And then 2 years later, they show up in the third floor of the residence at the White House. This is Bill Clinton saying it all depends on what is. I think this is just another instance where you're going to see the American people are going to say, enough. We've given you the opportunity, you as a family, you as an individual, to be forthright and honest, and it just does not seem that that's in your DNA to level with the American people whose trust you were given to serve in these positions of high honor and privilege.
All right, couple of minutes left, couple of things we got left to do here. John Boehner or Mitch McConnell, which one is now the weak link in the Republican chain?
Well, actually, I think John Boehner comes out of this DHS shutdown in a lot better shape than people think. People initially said Boehner's been weakened by this due to the fact that he couldn't get his caucus to rally around a shorter-term bill as opposed to giving the president the clean bill he wanted. And then when you look at Mitch McConnell, if I'm going to put the blame or the weaker link on the chain here, I'm going to say McConnell. McConnell could not corral his more conservative members in the House to go along with the House's position, and I think at the end that makes him look a little bit weaker about being able to herd fewer cats than Speaker John Boehner has in his caucus.
All right, another potential candidate here. Jeb Bush has told his donors he wants to cap the donations at $1 million. Is this really much ado about strategy or serious money? Because there's not a lot of people who give over $1 million in the first place, Ron.
No, there certainly aren't. I think what Governor Bush is trying to do right now is to out-fundraise, to out-organize, and to have an infrastructure in place as such that other potential Republican candidates for office for the presidency on the Republican side might say, boy, that Bush, he's going to be too hard to beat. He's got too much money. He's got too much staff organized. in Iowa and New Hampshire. I think this is more about Bush really trying to have a smoother path for him to travel down towards the eventual nomination that so many folks are seeking.
1 minute, last note on strategy here. Ben Carson came out and he said that he believed that prison led people to being gay. He came out and then blamed the media, said he wasn't going to answer any more questions about gays. Now he's come out and apologized for what he said originally. Has he begun, or has he indeed at this point jumped the shark already?
Well, I think his campaign might be over before it starts. I mean, he's had some troubling comments, such as the one that you just mentioned, Ed, and I just think that the American people admire his candor, they admire his honesty, something we don't see out of the Clintons, but maybe he's being a little bit too honest about what he thinks, and I think that's such a controversial statement to make that should he start really getting up there in the polls, I think people will take a fresher look and maybe decide that he's not ready for prime time.
And maybe don't blame the media, right?
Yeah, please. I mean, that sounds like the Clintons, for goodness sake.
Please, let's not do that. All right, we were starting off so well, and all of a sudden we just kind of dropped down into that. Ron, it's always a pleasure. By the way, we want to point out that if you go to Ron Christie's Twitter page, a marvelous picture of Ron as a young man there. You must absolutely see it. I tell people it's must-see television indeed. There you go, Ron. Now I'm going to get you a few million more Twitter followers.
Ron_Christie, everybody.
There you go. Ron, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Take care, Ed.
All right, take care. All right, we're going to go next to net neutrality. But where do we go next in net neutrality? That seems to be the big question. Keystone, where do you go next? And oh yeah, the Obamacare SCOTUS hearings. That's coming up and a whole lot more as we continue from the governmental side next on MidPoint.